You need to leave her alone, Julian. She's not one of us. I wasn't supposed to hear that. I was standing outside the hospital chapel, my hand frozen on the door handle, and his mother's voice cut through the silence like a blade. I should have walked away. I should have given them privacy. But my feet wouldn't move, because I already knew, what she was talking about. Me. Let me back up. Let me tell you how I ended up here, eavesdropping on a conversation that would shatter everything I'd been trying so desperately to build. Let me tell you about the voice that saved me before I ever saw his face. 6 months ago, my mother left. No warning. No goodbye. Just an empty closet and a note that said, "I can't do this anymore." She left me with Emma, my 4-year-old sister who still asks when mommy's coming home, who still sets out an extra plate at dinner sometimes because she forgets. I was 24 years old, working 2 jobs, and suddenly I was a mother. I worked at a coffee shop during the day, barely making rent on our tiny apartment. At night, I did data entry from home while Emma slept. But the silence in those dark hours was suffocating. The weight of everything I was carrying felt like it was crushing my chest, and I needed something, anything, to make me feel less alone. That's when I found the crisis hotline volunteer posting. Overnight shifts. From home. Helping people through their worst moments while sitting in my living room, listening to Emma's soft breathing from the other room. Maybe if I could save someone else, I wouldn't feel so broken myself. I trained for 2 weeks. I learned the scripts, the de-escalation techniques, the careful balance between empathy and boundaries. And then, on my 3rd real shift, at 2:47 in the morning, the call came in. Crisis hotline, this is Lily. Silence. Heavy breathing. Then a voice, shaking so badly I could barely understand the words. I can't breathe. I can't. My heart lurched. Hey, I'm right here. You're okay. Can you tell me your name? I can't breathe. His voice cracked, desperate. Everything's closing in and I can't. I know. I hear you. But you're talking to me right now, which means air is moving. You're breathing. You're okay. I kept my voice low, steady. I'm going to count with you. Can you try to breathe in for 4 counts? I can't. Just try. 1, 2, 3, 4. I heard him struggling, gasping. But he was trying. Good. Now hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now out for 4. We did this for 6 minutes. 6 minutes of me counting, of him fighting, of this stranger on the other end of the line clinging to my voice like it was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. Finally, his breathing evened out. The panic in his voice faded to exhaustion. Thank you. It came out as barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. That's what I'm here for. I paused. Do you want to tell me what triggered this? Another long silence. Then, if I tell you my name, you'll know who I am. And if you know who I am, you'll treat me differently. Something in his voice made my chest ache. I don't need to know your name. You can be whoever you want to be right now. Then, can I just be Jay? Hi, Jay. I'm Lily. Can I call again? I wasn't supposed to say yes. The hotline wasn't for regular callers. But something in my gut told me this man needed this. Needed me. Yes. You can call again. He did. 2 nights later. Then 3 nights after that. Then twice a week. Then 4 times a week. For 3 months, Jay became the voice I looked forward to in the darkness. We talked about everything. He told me about his family, the suffocating expectations, the weight of a name he never asked for, the feeling of being crushed under obligations that weren't his to carry. He told me about his dreams, small and secret, restoring old buildings, working with his hands, disappearing into a life that was quiet and his own. I told him about Emma. About the guilt that ate at me every single day, guilt for resenting a responsibility I never chose, guilt for not being enough, guilt for the moments when I looked at her sleeping face and felt trapped instead of grateful. I told him about my mother, about the abandonment that felt like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. We were brutally honest because we were strangers in the dark. Because there was safety in anonymity. Because when you can't see someone's face, you can tell them the truth. "Do you ever feel like you're drowning?" he asked me one night, his voice soft and tired. "Every single day," I whispered back. "Me too." And somehow, knowing I wasn't alone in that feeling made it bearable. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what he looked like. But I knew his voice, the way it dropped when he was being vulnerable, the rare moments when he laughed and it sounded like freedom. I knew his fears, his dreams, the way he said my name like it was something precious. I knew him. Then everything changed. My landlord called on a Tuesday afternoon. The building was being sold. I had 60 days to find a new place. I spent 3 weeks searching. Everything was too expensive. Every apartment that would take Emma and me required deposits I didn't have, rent I couldn't afford. I was drowning, and I couldn't tell Jay because I was too ashamed to admit that I was failing at the one thing that mattered, keeping my sister safe. That's when I saw the posting. Housekeeping position at Marcetti Grand Hotel. Better pay. Full benefits. Employee childcare. I didn't know anything about the Marcetti family except that they owned half the city's luxury properties. I didn't care. I needed this job. I applied on a Thursday. I had an interview on Friday. I started on Monday. The Marcetti Grand was exactly what it sounded like: marble floors, crystal chandeliers, the kind of place where people wore clothes that cost more than my monthly rent. I felt like an imposter walking through those halls in my cleaning uniform, pushing my cart, trying to be invisible. But the employee childcare was a miracle. Emma loved it immediately, the bright colors, the toys, the other kids. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could keep us both afloat. I was walking down a staff hallway on my 4th day, exhausted from a double shift, when I turned a corner and collided with someone. Hard. I stumbled backward. Strong hands caught my arms, steadying me. "I'm so sorry, I wasn't." I looked up. And the entire world stopped. I knew those eyes. I knew the shape of his mouth, the line of his jaw, even though I'd never seen them before. Because I knew his voice. "Lily?" It was barely a whisper. Shocked. Terrified. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Because standing in front of me, wearing an expensive suit and looking at me like he'd seen a ghost, was Jay. Julian Marcetti. My boss. A billionaire. The man I'd told everything to. "I have to go." The words came out strangled. I pulled away from him, my heart hammering so hard I thought I'd pass out. "Lily, wait." But I was already running. Running down the hallway, away from his voice, away from the humiliation crashing over me in waves. He knew. He knew everything. Every moment of weakness, every confession about my poverty, my struggles, my fears. And he was Julian Marcetti, heir to an empire, a man who probably had staff to handle his staff. I'd poured my heart out to my boss. I wanted to die. I avoided him for 3 days. Changed my schedule. Took different hallways. Picked up Emma from daycare at different times. I couldn't face him. Couldn't stand the thought of seeing pity in his eyes, or worse, nothing at all. What if our connection had been fake? What if he'd been slumming, entertaining himself with the sad stories of a struggling hotline volunteer? But on the fourth day, when I went to pick up Emma, she wasn't in the main playroom. "She's in the reading corner," one of the daycare workers told me, smiling. "With our volunteer." My stomach dropped. I walked around the corner and froze. Julian was sitting cross-legged on the floor, Emma curled up against his side, a picture book open in his lap. He was reading in different voices, making her giggle, his whole face soft in a way I'd never seen. Emma looked up and saw me. "Lily. This is Julie. He's reading about dragons." "Julie." Julian's eyes met mine over Emma's head. Cautious. Hopeful. Terrified. "Hi," he said quietly. I couldn't speak. Couldn't process what I was seeing. Emma tugged on his sleeve. "Are you a prince? You look like a prince. Do you live in a castle?" Julian's laugh was startled, genuine. "This hotel is kind of like a castle, I guess. Can you read to me again tomorrow?" He looked at me, asking permission without words. I should have said no. Should have grabbed Emma and left. But she was smiling, really smiling, and I hadn't seen her that happy in months. "If Julie has time," I managed. "I'll make time," he said, and something in his voice made my chest tight. That's how it started. Julian volunteering at the daycare during his lunch breaks. Reading to the kids. Playing pretend. Being gentle and patient and nothing like what I'd expected from a billionaire heir. And I watched. I couldn't help it. I watched him with Emma, watched the way he listened to her rambling stories about her stuffed animals, watched the way he remembered details, her favorite color, her imaginary friend's name, the song she liked to sing. This was Jay. Not the heir. Not the boss. Just Jay. 2 weeks later, I was leaving work when I saw the crowd gathered in the hotel's grand ballroom. Music drifted into the hallway. Laughter. The clinking of champagne glasses. "What's going on?" I asked one of the other housekeepers. "Engagement party. Julian Marcetti's getting married to some socialite. Victoria something. The whole family's here." The words hit me like a physical blow. I should have kept walking. Should have gone home. But something pulled me closer, just to the doorway where I could see inside without being seen. Julian stood at the center of the room, surrounded by beautiful people in expensive clothes. Victoria hung on his arm, blonde, poised, perfect. His family hovered nearby, all smiles. But Julian looked like he was drowning. I saw it in the tightness around his eyes, the way his smile didn't reach them. I saw the moment his breathing changed, becoming faster, shallower. I saw him excuse himself, his voice too controlled, and slip away through a side door. No one else noticed. But I did. I followed him without thinking. Down a service hallway, through a door that led to a rooftop terrace. He was leaning against the railing, his jacket discarded, his hands gripping the metal so hard his knuckles were white. He was having a panic attack. Jay. His name came out soft. He spun around, and the look on his face, desperate, broken, made my heart crack. "Lily. God. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you." I moved closer, slowly. "Breathe with me. Come on. You know the count. I can't do this." His voice was ragged. "I can't marry her. I don't love her. I don't even know her. But my family, they need this. They need me to be this person, and I can't." "Then don't." He laughed bitterly. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because I'm a Marcetti. Because this is what we do. We marry the right people, we make the right alliances, we carry on the legacy. He ran his hands through his hair, destroying its perfect style. Because if I don't, I'm selfish. I'm letting everyone down. I thought about every conversation we'd had. Every time he'd told me about feeling trapped, about wanting to break free. And I thought about how I'd told him the truth even when it hurt. So I did it again. You're already letting someone down, I said quietly. Yourself. He stared at me. You called that hotline because you were suffocating. You talked to me because I was the only person who let you be honest. And now you're going to marry someone you don't love because it's easier than fighting? I shook my head. That's not the Jay I know. You don't understand. The pressure, the expectations. You're right. I don't understand that. But I understand what it's like to be trapped in a life you didn't choose. I understand what it's like to feel like you're drowning. I moved closer. The difference is, you have a choice. I didn't get one. The words hung between us. I'm sorry, he whispered. God, Lily, I'm so sorry. When I saw you in that hallway, I wanted to explain everything, but I didn't know how. I was terrified you'd think I'd been lying to you, or using you, or… Were you? No. He stepped toward me, his eyes intense. Every word was real. Every conversation. You're the only person who's ever seen me, really seen me. Not the name, not the money, just me. My heart was pounding. Then why didn't you tell me who you were? Because I was afraid of this. Of you looking at me differently. Of losing the one real thing in my life. His voice broke. When you ran from me that day, I thought I'd lost you anyway. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to reconcile the man in front of me with the voice I'd fallen for in the darkness. Emma asks about you, I said finally. She wants to know when Julie is coming back to read to her. Something in his expression softened. I meant what I said. I'll make time. If you'll let me. Why do you care so much about her? Because she's yours. The words were simple, honest. And because when she calls me Julie and asks if I'll play dragons with her, it's the only time I feel like I'm doing something that matters. Behind us, the door opened. A man in a suit stepped out. Mr. Marcetti, your family is asking for you. Julian's jaw tightened. But he nodded. I'll be right there. The man left. Julian looked at me, and I saw the war happening behind his eyes. Duty. Desire. Fear. Hope. I have to go back, he said. I know. He started toward the door, then stopped. Turned back. I'm not going to marry her. My breath caught. Julian. I don't know how yet. But I'm not. His voice was firm, certain. Because you're right. I have a choice. And I'm choosing to be honest. Finally. Then he was gone, back to the party, back to his family. And I stood on that rooftop, my heart racing, wondering what I'd just set in motion. The next morning, the news broke. Julian Marcetti had called off his engagement. The tabloids went wild. His family was in crisis. The hotel was swarming with reporters. And Julian disappeared. For 3 days, I didn't see him. Didn't hear from him. The daycare volunteer schedule showed he'd cancelled all his shifts. Emma kept asking when Julie was coming back, and I didn't know what to tell her. I told myself it was better this way. Whatever had been building between us, it was impossible. I was an employee. He was my boss. I lived paycheck to paycheck in a one-bedroom apartment. He lived in a penthouse that probably cost more than I'd make in 10 lifetimes. We were from different worlds. But on the 4th day, when I picked up Emma from daycare, there was a note in her backpack. I'm sorry I disappeared. I needed time to think. Can we talk? There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from the hotel. Tomorrow, 7 p.m.? I'll understand if you don't come. J. I stared at that note for hours. Turned it over and over in my hands while Emma slept, while I tried to convince myself that going would be a mistake. But at 6:55 p.m. the next night, I was standing outside that coffee shop, my heart in my throat. He was already there. Sitting in a corner booth, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of a suit. He looked tired. Younger. Real. His eyes found mine, and the relief on his face was almost painful to see. You came, he said as I slid into the booth across from him. I almost didn't. I wouldn't have blamed you. He wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. I handled everything wrong. I should have told you who I was from the beginning. Why didn't you? Because that hotline was the only place I could be honest. The only place where I wasn't Julian Marcetti, heir, obligation, disappointment. He looked up at me. And then I met you, and you were so real, so brave, and I didn't want you to see me as anything other than Jay. Just a guy who needed help. You never needed help. You needed freedom. Maybe. He smiled slightly. Or maybe I needed someone to tell me I deserved it. I didn't know what to say to that. I ended the engagement, he continued. My mother is furious. My father is disappointed. The board is concerned about the family image. Victoria's family is threatening legal action over the humiliation. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. I've created a disaster. Do you regret it? No. The word was firm. For the first time in my life, I did something just because it was right. Not because it was expected. And it felt. He trailed off, searching for the word. Like breathing, I finished softly. His eyes met mine. Yeah. We sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop hummed around us, conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, the clink of cups. Where do we go from here? I asked finally. I don't know. He leaned forward. But I know I don't want to lose you. Not as a volunteer, not as Emma's friend, not as whatever we've been to each other these past months. I work for you, Julian. That makes this complicated. Then I'll transfer you to a different hotel. Or I'll step back from hotel operations entirely, I've been wanting to anyway. He spoke quickly, desperately. I'll do whatever it takes to make this not complicated. It's not that simple. Why not? I thought about all the reasons. The money. The difference in our lives. The judgment we'd face. The fact that his world would chew me up and spit me out. The fact that loving him might mean exposing Emma to scrutiny and gossip and a life neither of us was prepared for. But what came out was, because I'm scared. Of what? Of not being enough. The confession tore out of me. I'm a 24-year-old with a GED and 2 jobs who's barely keeping her head above water. You're you. And what if your mother is right? What if I'm not someone who can handle your world? Julian reached across the table. His hand covered mine, warm and solid. My world is the problem, not you. And I'm trying to change it. His voice was gentle. You're the strongest person I know, Lily. You're raising Emma alone. You're working 2 jobs. You volunteer to help strangers in the middle of the night even though you're exhausted. You tell the truth even when it's hard. You're not the one who's not enough, I am. Tears burned in my eyes. That's not true. Then why does it feel like I've spent my entire life trying to measure up to a standard I'll never reach? Why does it feel like the only time I'm enough is when I'm talking to you? I didn't have an answer for that. We talked for 3 hours. About his family, about the business, about what he actually wanted to do with his life. He told me about his degree in historical architecture, about the buildings he'd dreamed of restoring, about the quiet life he'd imagined far away from the spotlight. I told him about Emma's nightmares, about the guilt that never went away, about my fear that I'd fail her the way our mother had failed us both. And slowly, the distance between us felt less impossible. "Can I ask you something?" he said as we finally stood to leave. "Anything. Can I keep reading to Emma? At the daycare?" He looked almost shy. "I know it's probably not appropriate given everything, but she's special. And I don't want to disappoint her." Something in my chest cracked open. She'd love that. His smile was bright enough to light up the dark street. Over the next month, Julian became part of our routine. He showed up at the daycare 3 times a week, reading to all the kids but always saving extra time for Emma. He taught her to make pasta on Sunday mornings in the hotel's staff kitchen, flour everywhere, Emma laughing so hard she got hiccups. He brought children's books by our apartment, helped Emma build elaborate blanket forts, sat with her during her bedtime routine when I had to work late. He never overstepped. Never tried to replace anyone. He was just there. Steady. Present. Real. And I watched him with Emma, watched the way he was patient when she was cranky, gentle when she was scared, playful when she needed to laugh. Watched the way he looked at her like she was precious. Watched the way he looked at me like I was home. "Why are you doing this?" I asked him one Sunday afternoon. Emma was napping on the couch, exhausted from making ravioli. We were sitting on my tiny balcony, drinking cheap wine. "Because I want to," he said simply. "Your family must hate this. You, spending time with your hotel housekeeper and her kid sister." He flinched. "Don't do that." "Don't do what?" "Reduce yourself. You're not the housekeeper. You're Lily." He set down his wine. "And for the record, I transferred you to the management training program. You start next month. You earned it, your supervisor recommended you before I even suggested it." I stared at him. "What?" "You're smart, capable, and overqualified for housekeeping. The program will put you on a path to hotel management. Better pay, better hours, better benefits." He smiled slightly. "And before you argue, this has nothing to do with me. I asked the training director to review all recent hires for potential candidates. Your name came up first. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You're impossible. I'm trying to help without making you feel like I'm fixing your problems. Because I know you hate that." He reached over, his fingers brushing mine. "Is it working?" "Maybe." We sat in silence, watching the sun set over the city. Emma snored softly from inside. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something like peace. "I'm falling for you," Julian said quietly. "I need you to know that. So if this isn't, if you don't feel the same, tell me now. Before I fall any further." My heart stopped. Started. Raced. "I feel the same," I whispered. "I'm terrified. But I feel the same." He turned to me, and the look on his face was everything, hope and fear and want and tenderness all mixed together. "Can I kiss you?" I nodded. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to change my mind. But I didn't want to. I wanted this, wanted him, more than I'd wanted anything in so long. His lips met mine, soft and careful. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing my cheek. And the world fell away, the fear, the complications, the impossible differences between our lives. There was just us. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I'm all in," he murmured. "Whatever it takes. However long it takes. I'm all in." "Me too," I breathed. And I meant it. For 6 weeks, we existed in a bubble. Stolen kisses in quiet hallways. Sunday mornings making breakfast with Emma. Late-night phone calls when we couldn't sleep, our voices soft and intimate like they'd been on the hotline. He took us to the park, to children's museums, to his favorite bookstore where Emma got to pick out as many books as she could carry. His family didn't know. We kept it quiet, careful. Just us. But bubbles always burst. It happened at the hotel. Julian's family was hosting a charity gala, his mother, his father, his grandmother, the whole Marcetti clan. I was working that night, part of my management training rotation. I wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the event. But his grandmother had requested specific accommodations, and I was asked to deliver them personally to the family's private suite. I knocked. Heard voices inside. Was about to leave the items at the door when I heard Julian's mother say his name. Julian is seeing someone. I froze. Who? His grandmother's voice was sharp, curious. I don't know yet. But he's different. Happier. His mother sighed. I want to be happy for him. I do. But after the Victoria disaster, we can't afford another scandal. Let the boy be happy, Caroline. That was his grandmother. It's not that simple. You know the pressure we're under. The board is already questioning Julian's judgment. If he's involved with someone inappropriate. Inappropriate? His grandmother's voice was icy. You know what I mean. Someone who isn't prepared for this life. Someone who could become a liability. My hand was still raised to knock. But I couldn't move. We need to find out who she is, his mother continued. And if she's not right for him, we need to intervene. For his own good. I set the items down silently and walked away. That night, I couldn't sleep. Emma was curled up beside me, her small hand clutching my shirt, and I stared at the ceiling and felt the walls closing in. What if his mother was right? Julian's world was scrutiny and pressure and expectations I couldn't even imagine. What if loving him meant dragging Emma into that? What if it meant constant judgment, constant surveillance, people picking apart every choice I made? What if I really wasn't enough? I didn't tell Julian what I'd heard. Didn't know how to without sounding like I was giving up. But he noticed something was wrong. Talk to me, he said 3 days later. We were in his office at the hotel. He'd asked me to stop by after my shift. Emma was at her friend's house for a playdate. I'm fine. Lily. He moved closer. Don't lie to me. Not now. The gentleness in his voice broke something in me. What if this is a mistake? The words tumbled out. What if we're moving too fast? What if your family's right and I'm not, equipped for your life? His face went pale. What are you talking about? Did someone say something to you? I shook my head. It doesn't matter. It does matter. He took my hands. Tell me. So I did. Told him about overhearing his mother, about the fears that had been eating at me since, about the worry that loving him meant exposing Emma to a world that would judge her, judge us, tear us apart. Julian was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Then he said, "Do you trust me?" Yes. But. No buts. Do you trust me? Yes. Then trust me when I say that my family doesn't get to decide who I love. Trust me when I say I will protect you and Emma from anything that comes our way. Trust me when I say that you are enough, more than enough. His voice was fierce. And trust me when I say I'm not going anywhere. But your mother. My mother is worried about appearances. About the family legacy. And I understand that. But I'm not living my life for appearances anymore. He cupped my face. I'm living it for me. For us. And if my family can't accept that, then we'll deal with it. Together. I wanted to believe him. Wanted it so badly it hurt. What if it's too much? What if Emma gets hurt? Then we'll protect her. We'll set boundaries. We'll make sure she knows she's loved and safe. His thumb brushed away a tear I didn't know had fallen. But we don't run from this. Not unless you really want to. Not unless you're telling me you don't love me. I do love you. The confession broke out of me. God, Julian, I love you so much it scares me. Then let me love you back. He pulled me close, holding me tight. Let me prove to you that we can do this. I buried my face in his chest and let myself cry, for all the fear, all the doubt, all the weight I'd been carrying alone. And he held me through it. 2 weeks later, Emma got sick. It started as a fever, then she couldn't keep anything down. By the second day, she was so dehydrated I took her to the emergency room. They admitted her immediately. For fluids. Monitoring. The doctor said she'd be fine, but she needed to stay overnight. I called Julian without thinking. He was there in 20 minutes. How is she? He was breathless, his hair disheveled like he'd run the whole way. Sleeping. They said she'll be okay, but my voice broke. He pulled me into his arms right there in the hallway. Held me while I fell apart, whispering that everything would be okay, that Emma was strong, that I wasn't alone. Then he went into Emma's room and sat beside her bed. He stayed there all night, singing soft songs when she woke up scared, holding her hand, telling her silly stories about dragons and castles to make her smile. I watched from the doorway, my heart cracking open. At 3 a.m., I stepped out to the hospital chapel. I needed air. Needed space to process the terror of almost losing Emma, the gratitude of having Julian there, the overwhelming realization of what he'd become to us. I was sitting in the silence when Julian found me. She's sleeping, he said, sitting beside me. Nurse said her vitals are improving. I nodded, unable to speak. You okay? Why are you here? The question came out strangled. Why do you care so much about her? About us? Julian was quiet for a moment. Then he took my hand. When I was a kid, I used to imagine running away. Just disappearing, becoming someone else, living a simple life somewhere no one knew my name. He smiled sadly. I used to think that was freedom. But then I met you, and I realized I had it backwards. What do you mean? Freedom isn't running away from something. It's running towards something that matters. He looked at me. You and Emma, you matter. When I'm with you, I'm not the heir or the obligation or the disappointment. I'm just Julian. And when Emma calls me Julie and asks if I'll be her big brother, his voice caught. I've never wanted anything more in my life. Tears streamed down my face. I love her, he said simply. I love you. And I know it's fast, and I know it's complicated, but I don't care. You're my family now. Both of you. I kissed him. Right there in the chapel, with the soft light filtering through stained glass and the weight of the world lifting off my shoulders. I love you too, I whispered against his lips. So much. We stayed there together until dawn. Until Emma woke up asking for breakfast. Until the doctor came in with discharge papers and a clean bill of health. And when we left the hospital, Julian carrying Emma, me walking beside them, it felt like coming home. The next week, Julian invited me to dinner with his family. Are you sure? I asked. We were in his apartment, Emma asleep in his guest room after an afternoon of building pillow forts. I'm sure. I want them to meet you. Really meet you. Not as my employee or some secret I'm hiding. As the woman I love. Your mother won't be happy. Probably not. But my grandmother will like you. He smiled. And her opinion is the only one that really matters. What if they hate me? Impossible. He pulled me close. But even if they did, it wouldn't change anything. You're it for me, Lily. This is forever. Forever. The word should have scared me. Instead, it felt like relief. The dinner was at his grandmother's estate, a sprawling property that made me feel impossibly small. I wore the nicest dress I owned, Emma in a little outfit Julian had insisted on buying her. My hands shook as we walked up to the door. Breathe, Julian murmured, his hand on my back. You've got this. His grandmother answered the door herself, a tiny woman with sharp eyes and a warmer smile than I expected. You must be Lily. She looked me up and down, then turned to Emma. And who is this beautiful princess? I'm Emma. Are you a queen? His grandmother laughed, a genuine, delighted sound. I used to be, in a way. Come, let me show you my garden. Do you like flowers? Emma nodded enthusiastically, and just like that, she was holding his grandmother's hand, chattering away about her favorite colors. Julian squeezed my hand. See? Told you. His parents were waiting in the dining room. His mother, elegant, composed, her smile polite but guarded. His father, quiet, assessing, shaking my hand with careful formality. So you're the young woman who's captured my son's attention, his mother said as we sat down. Mom, Julian warned. It's a fair observation. She turned to me. Julian has told us you work at the hotel. In management training, is that right? Yes, ma'am. And Emma is your sister? Yes. That must be difficult. Raising a child so young. I felt the judgment beneath the polite words. Felt myself shrinking. But then Julian's hand found mine under the table. Lily is the most capable person I know, he said firmly. She's kept her family together through circumstances that would break most people. I admire her more than anyone I've ever met. His mother's expression flickered with something I couldn't read. I'm sure she's very resilient. The pause before the word felt deliberate. But Julian, you have to understand our concerns. Your position requires. Caroline. His grandmother's voice cut through the room like a blade. She'd returned with Emma, who was clutching a flower. Are we really going to do this over dinner? Mother, I'm just being practical. You're being rude. The old woman sat down, settling Emma beside her. This girl has done nothing to deserve your interrogation. I'm not interrogating. I'm asking reasonable questions about someone who's become important to our family. Then ask them with kindness. His grandmother turned to me, her expression softening. Lily, tell me about yourself. What do you dream about? What makes you happy? The question caught me off guard. No one had asked me that in years. I want Emma to have opportunities one didn't have. I want her to go to college, to travel, to never feel like she's not enough. The words came out quiet but true. And I want to build something meaningful. The management program, it's a chance to create stability for us. To prove that we can make it. And Julian? She studied me carefully. What does he mean to you? I looked at him. At the man who'd been a voice in the dark, who'd read to my sister, who'd held me while I cried, who'd shown up at a hospital in the middle of the night without hesitation. He's my best friend, I said softly. He sees me when I feel invisible. He makes me believe I'm stronger than I think I am. And he loves Emma like she's his own. My voice caught. I don't know what I did to deserve him. But I'm not letting him go. The room was silent. Then his grandmother smiled. Good answer. Julian's mother set down her fork. This is all very touching. But you have to understand, Julian's life is complicated. The scrutiny, the expectations, the constant pressure. Can you handle that? Can Emma? Mom, that's enough. No, it's okay. I looked at Julian's mother directly. You're right. I can't handle it. Not the way you want me to. I don't know how to navigate high society. I don't have the right background or the right education or the right connections. I took a breath. But I know how to love your son. I know how to be honest with him. And I know that he's happier now than he's been in years, he told me so himself. Happiness isn't everything, she said quietly. Maybe not. But it should count for something. His father spoke for the first time. What happens when the novelty wears off? When Julian realizes the life he gave up for you? The question hit like a punch to the gut. Julian stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. That's it. We're done. Julian. No. I've sat here and listened to you question Lily's worth, her capability, her place in my life. And I'm done. His voice shook with anger. You want to know what happens when the novelty wears off? I'll tell you. I wake up every day grateful that I found someone who loves me for who I am, not what I represent. Someone who makes me want to be better. Someone who gave me the courage to finally be honest about what I want. And what do you want? His mother asked. A life that's mine. Not yours. Not the board's. Not the family legacies. Mine. He looked down at me. And I want it with her. The silence was deafening. Then his grandmother started clapping. Slow, deliberate applause that filled the room. Well said, my boy. She stood up, moving to Julian's side. Caroline, Marcus, I think it's time we were honest. We didn't build this family so our children would be miserable. We built it so they could thrive. Mother, you can't be serious. I'm entirely serious. She looked at me. Lily, do you love my grandson? Yes, ma'am. And will you stand by him? Even when things get hard? I thought about everything we'd already been through. The fear, the uncertainty, the moments when giving up would have been easier. Yes, I said firmly. She nodded. Then you have my blessing. And my support. Which, in this family, is the only thing that truly matters. Julian's mother looked stricken. Mother, you can't just. I can. And I have. She squeezed Julian's shoulder. Now, I believe Emma wanted to show me her drawing. Lily, would you join us in the library? I think we have much to discuss. I looked at Julian. He nodded, his eyes full of gratitude and love. And I followed his grandmother out of the room, Emma skipping between us, while behind me I heard Julian's parents starting to argue in hushed, angry voices. In the library, his grandmother poured tea and asked Emma about her favorite stories. Then, when Emma was distracted with a picture book, she turned to me. Julian's mother isn't a bad person. She's scared. Of me? Of losing control. Of watching her son get hurt. She sipped her tea. But fear makes us cruel sometimes. And she was cruel to you tonight. I apologize for that. You don't have to. I do. You're part of this family now, whether Caroline accepts it or not. She set down her cup. Julian has been drowning for years. I watched him fade into someone I barely recognized, obedient, miserable, trapped. Then, 3 months ago, something changed. He started smiling again. Started pushing back against expectations. Started living. She looked at me. That was you, wasn't it? I nodded. We met through a crisis hotline. He didn't tell me who he was. We just talked. And you saved him. I think we saved each other. She smiled. Even better. She leaned forward. I'm going to be frank with you, Lily. This won't be easy. There will be people who judge you, who question your motives, who make your life difficult simply because you don't fit their narrow idea of who Julian should be with. Can you handle that? I don't know, I admitted. But I'm willing to try. For him. For us. Good. Because Julian needs someone strong beside him. Someone who won't let him disappear into what others expect. She paused. And Emma needs stability. Love. A family. Julian can give her that. You both can. Tears burned in my eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm putting you to work. Her eyes gleamed. There's a charity foundation I run, focused on family services, housing assistance, youth programs. I could use someone with real-world experience. Someone who understands what struggling families actually need, not what wealthy donors think they need. I stared at her. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a purpose. And a way to show this family that you're not here to take, you're here to give. She smiled. Interested? Yes. God, yes. Excellent. You start after you complete your management training. I want you properly prepared. She glanced at Emma. And that beautiful girl deserves the best opportunities. I have connections at several excellent schools, if you're interested. I can't afford scholarships, dear. Based entirely on merit. Emma's intelligence, not my influence. She raised an eyebrow. Although I won't lie and say my recommendation letter won't help. I didn't know what to say. This woman, this formidable, kind, surprising woman, was offering us a future I'd never dared to imagine. Why are you doing this? I whispered. Because Julian loves you. And I love Julian. And because I've spent 83 years building wealth and power, and I'll be damned if I don't use it to make my family happy. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Welcome to the family, Lily. Truly. That night, after we left, after Emma fell asleep in the car, after Julian walked us to our apartment, he pulled me into his arms on my doorstep. I'm sorry about my mother, he murmured. Don't be. She's protecting you. I understand that. She was wrong about you. Maybe not entirely. I am scared. I don't know if I can do this. Then we'll figure it out together. He cupped my face. But my grandmother was right. You're part of this family now. Which means you're not alone anymore. Neither of us are. I kissed him, pouring everything I felt into it, the fear and the hope and the love that was bigger than both. I love you, I breathed against his lips. I love you too. So much. He rested his forehead against mine. Thank you for not running. Thank you for staying. Where else would I go? I smiled. You're my home now. The next 6 months were a whirlwind. I completed the management training program and accepted a position as assistant manager at one of the smaller Marcetti properties. Julian stepped back from the CEO track, pursuing his real passion. He started a historical preservation company, restoring old buildings throughout the city. His grandmother's foundation became my second job, working with families in crisis, creating programs that actually helped instead of just looking good on paper. Emma thrived. She started at a new school, one of the ones his grandmother recommended, where she was challenged and supported and blossomed into the bright, confident kid I'd always known she could be. Julian picked her up twice a week, helping with homework, taking her to the park, being the constant, stable presence she'd never had. His mother came around slowly. She started joining us for Sunday dinners, watching the way Julian was with Emma, seeing how happy he was. She never apologized directly, but one night she pulled me aside and said, "You're good for him." I didn't want to see it at first. "But you are." It was enough. Julian moved us into a bigger apartment, 2 bedrooms, close to Emma's school, filled with light. He didn't push to live together, respecting my need for independence and stability. But he was there constantly, mornings making breakfast, evenings helping with bedtime, weekends building blanket forts and teaching Emma to ride a bike and being the partner I'd never thought I'd find. We had hard days. Days when the scrutiny got to me, when I saw articles online questioning our relationship, calling me a gold digger or worse. Days when Emma had nightmares about our mother, when the trauma of abandonment surfaced in ways that broke my heart. Days when Julian's family obligations pulled him away and I felt the distance between our worlds like a chasm. But we always came back to each other. Always chose each other. Always remembered why we'd fought so hard to be together in the first place. And slowly, impossibly, our life became real. Became ours. 1 year after that first dinner with his family, we were sitting in the audience at Emma's kindergarten graduation. Julian was on one side of me, his mother on the other. She'd insisted on coming, bringing flowers for Emma and dabbing at her eyes throughout the ceremony. Emma walked across the stage in her tiny cap and gown, her smile so big it could light up the world. She found us in the audience and waved frantically. Julian waved back, filming everything on his phone, grinning like a proud parent. When it was over, Emma ran to us, throwing herself into my arms first, then Julian's, then insisting on hugging his mother too. "Did you see me? Did you see? You were perfect," I told her, smoothing her hair. "The best graduate up there," Julian added, lifting her up. His mother leaned close to me. "Thank you." I looked at her, surprised. For giving him back to us, she continued quietly. "The real him. The happy him. I didn't realize how much we'd lost until I saw what you gave back." Her eyes were soft. "Thank you, Lily." I hugged her. Right there in the school cafeteria, surrounded by balloons and proud parents and excited children. "Thank you for letting me in," I whispered back. That night, after we'd celebrated with cake and presents and Emma had finally crashed from exhaustion, Julian asked if we could talk. We were on my balcony, the city lights spread out below us, the warm June air soft against our skin. "I have something for you," he said, his voice nervous in a way I rarely heard. "Julian, you don't have to." "I want to." He pulled out a small package, wrapped in brown paper. "This isn't. I mean, it's part of something bigger, but just open it." I unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a children's book, handmade, the cover illustrated in watercolors. "The Story of U.S.," I read aloud. My voice caught. "Look inside." I opened it. The pages were filled with illustrations, some by Julian, some clearly by Emma's little hand. The story was simple, beautiful. Once upon a time, there was a voice in the dark who found another voice in the dark. They didn't know each other's names or faces, but they knew each other's hearts. And that was enough. The voice became a man. The other voice became a woman with a little girl who needed love. And the man realized that the greatest magic in the world wasn't castles or crowns, it was family. So he asked the woman a question. I looked up, tears streaming down my face. Julian was on one knee. "Lily Morgan, you saved my life before you ever knew my name. You gave me courage when I had none. You showed me what real love looks like, messy and hard and worth fighting for." His voice shook. "You and Emma are my family. My home. My whole heart. And I don't want to spend another day without making that official." He pulled out a ring, simple, elegant, perfect. "Will you marry me?" I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Could only nod frantically as he slipped the ring on my finger and stood and pulled me into his arms. Yes, I finally managed. Yes, yes, yes. He kissed me, deep and long and full of promise. Full of everything we'd built together, everything we'd survived, everything we'd become. When we pulled apart, I heard a small gasp behind us. Emma was standing in the doorway, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest, her eyes wide. Julie? Are you going to be my real brother now? Julian laughed, the sound bright and free. If that's okay with you. She ran to us, throwing herself into our arms. Yes. Yes. Can I be in the wedding? Can I wear a princess dress? You can wear whatever you want, I told her, holding them both close. And will we all live together? Like a real family? Julian looked at me. I nodded. Like a real family, he confirmed. Emma squealed, bouncing with excitement. This is the best day ever. She ran back inside to draw pictures of what she wanted her dress to look like, leaving Julian and me alone again. Are you sure about this? I asked softly. About all of it? I've never been more sure of anything. He pulled me close. You're it for me, Lily. You and Emma. This is everything I've ever wanted. I kissed him again, tasting salt from my tears, feeling his smile against my lips. I love you, I whispered. I love you too. Always. We stood there on that balcony, wrapped in each other's arms, the ring on my finger catching the light. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to feel safe. To feel chosen. To feel home. The voice in the dark had found me when I needed it most. Had become a face, a name, a heart that matched mine. Had become my partner, my best friend, my future. And what started as two strangers sharing their fears in the middle of the night had become something neither of us could have ever imagined. A family. A love. A life. Our story. 6 months later, we stood in his grandmother's garden, the same one where she'd first walked with Emma, where flowers bloomed in every color imaginable. Emma walked down the aisle first, scattering petals in her princess dress, beaming at everyone. Julian's mother dabbed at her eyes in the front row. His grandmother sat tall and proud, a knowing smile on her face. And when I walked down that aisle, no father to give me away, just me choosing this, choosing him, Julian's face lit up like I'd hung the stars. Hi, he whispered when I reached him. Hi, I whispered back. The ceremony was simple, intimate. Just family and close friends. Vows that we wrote ourselves, promising honesty and courage and showing up even when things got hard. Promising to be each other's voice in the dark, always. When the officiant said we could kiss, Julian cupped my face like I was precious, like I was everything. My wife, he murmured against my lips. My husband, I breathed back. And as everyone cheered, as Emma jumped up and down clapping, as his mother smiled through her tears and his grandmother nodded in satisfaction, I realized something. I'd spent so long feeling like I wasn't enough. Like I was drowning, failing, barely holding on. But I wasn't drowning anymore. I was flying. We honeymooned in Italy, just the two of us for 1 week while his mother watched Emma, something I never thought I'd trust anyone enough to do. We wandered through old cities, ate pasta and gelato, explored ruins and cathedrals. Julian sketched buildings he wanted to restore someday. I collected stories about the places we'd take Emma when she was older. And every night, wrapped in his arms in some beautiful hotel room, I thought about how far we'd come. From two voices in the dark to this, sunlight and laughter and a future I could actually see. When we got home, Emma ran into our arms, chattering about everything she'd done with Grandma Caroline. We moved into a house, not a mansion, but something perfect for us. 3 bedrooms, a yard for Emma to play in, an office for Julian to work from, a kitchen where we made Sunday pasta together. Life wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. Emma still had moments where she asked about our mother, where the abandonment cut deep. I still had moments of doubt, of feeling out of place in Julian's world. Julian still struggled with family expectations, with finding balance between the life he wanted and the obligations he couldn't entirely escape. But we faced it together. I built programs through his grandmother's foundation that helped hundreds of families like mine, single parents struggling to make ends meet, kids who needed stability, people who'd been forgotten by systems that were supposed to help them. Julian restored buildings throughout the city, turning forgotten spaces into community centers, affordable housing, places that mattered. Emma grew up surrounded by love, mine, Julian's, his family's. She stopped asking about our mother. Started calling Julian Dad without us ever asking her to. Thrived in ways I'd once only dreamed of. And 5 years after that first phone call, sitting on our porch while Emma played in the yard and Julian grilled dinner, I thought about the girl I used to be. Exhausted. Alone. Drowning in responsibility and fear. I thought about the night I answered a call from a stranger having a panic attack. I thought about how one voice in the dark had changed everything. "What are you thinking about?" Julian asked, sitting down beside me. "Us. How we started." He smiled, pulling me close. "Best phone call I ever made. Best phone call I ever answered." Emma ran up to us, dirt on her knees, flowers in her hands. "Look what I found." "They're beautiful, sweetheart," I told her. "Like you, Mama." She climbed into my lap, snuggling close. Julian wrapped his arms around both of us, and we sat there as the sun set, this family we'd built from broken pieces and second chances and love that refused to give up. I'd spent so long feeling like I wasn't enough. But here, in this moment, with these people, I finally understood the truth. I was everything I needed to be. And I was home.